Pope Leo XIV has officially begun his ministry as the new leader of the Catholic Church, and during his inauguration Mass, he gave a homily that deeply moved not only those in St. Peter's Square, but also many watching from around the world. Though his homily was just around 10 to 12 minutes long, it felt timeless. It wasn't about performance, it wasn't full of high drama or overly poetic language. It was simple, heartfelt, and deeply spiritual. And sometimes, it's these quiet, grounded words that reach the farthest. What Pope Leo said in those few minutes touched something deeper in the hearts of listeners. A reminder of why the Church exists and what it means to be part of it today. He began by expressing his gratitude. His first words were, "I greet all of you with a heart full of gratitude at the beginning of the ministry that has now been entrusted to me." These may sound like formal words, but the way he said them made them feel personal, like they were coming from a man who knew the weight of what he was stepping into. In those words, you could hear humility. You could hear the beginning of a papacy that would be marked by sincerity and service, rather than ceremony alone. Pope Leo immediately set the tone not just for his speech, but for his leadership, a tone rooted in thankfulness, humility, and clear direction. As he continued, he turned to one of the most well-loved saints in Christian history, St. Augustine. He quoted him saying, "Lord, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." This quote is often repeated, but in the context of his homily, it felt especially powerful. Here was a new pope, beginning his ministry, choosing to reflect not on his personal plans or on worldly matters, but on the deep restlessness of the human soul. It was a sign that his papacy might focus not just on programs or politics, but on the deeper spiritual hunger that lives inside all people. This line from St. Augustine speaks to the condition of so many people today: restless, searching, often feeling lost even in the middle of busy lives. Pope Leo used this moment to gently diagnose something that many people feel but can't always describe. He talked about the difference between restlessness and true rest. He explained that many today confuse constant activity for peace. The fast pace of modern life, always scrolling, always watching, always moving, can trick people into thinking they are fulfilled, when in truth they are often just distracted. Pope Leo made a quiet but strong point. True rest isn't found in activity, but in connection with God. Then Pope Leo turned toward the recent loss of Pope Francis, acknowledging the sorrow felt across the Church. His words painted a tender picture of a grieving community. He said, "In these days we have experienced intense emotions. The death of Pope Francis filled our hearts with sadness. In those difficult hours, we felt like the crowds that the Gospels say were like sheep without a shepherd." This image is both biblical and deeply human. It captured not only the sense of loss, but the vulnerability that can come with it. The Church had lost a shepherd, and the world was waiting, hoping for a voice to guide it again. But even in grief, Pope Leo pointed to hope. He reminded the faithful that on Easter Sunday, Pope Francis gave his final blessing, and that in the light of the resurrection, we were reminded that God never abandons his people. Even in sadness, there is light. Even in loss, there is love. These were not just comforting words, they were a statement of faith. Pope Leo wasn't just addressing the loss of a leader, he was reaffirming the presence of God, even in that loss. This is a theme that would echo throughout his homily. God is always present, even when the world feels uncertain. As he reflected on the process of his election, Pope Leo spoke about the conclave, the gathering of cardinals from around the world. He emphasized that this was not a political decision or a strategic plan. It was, as he put it, a spiritual act rooted in faith. This was a beautiful reminder that at its heart, the Church is not a business or a government. It is a spiritual body, and the decisions it makes must come from prayer and discernment, not power and ambition. He described the unity among the cardinals during the conclave as something deeply moving, like musical instruments brought into harmony by the Holy Spirit. This image of harmony was more than poetic. It gave a vision of what the Church could be, to not perfect, but united in purpose, with every member playing their part in a larger melody. Then came one of the most personal and powerful moments of the homily. Pope Leo said, "I was chosen without any merit of my own, and now, with fear and trembling, I come to you as a brother who desires to be the servant of your faith and your joy." These are the words of someone who does not see himself as above others, but beside them. A pope who sees himself first and foremost as a servant, not a ruler. He spoke of love and unity as the twin pillars of Peter's mission from Jesus, and he reminded the world that this mission is not about control but about care. In a time when authority is often questioned, these words carried special weight. Leadership, he was saying, is not about being served, it's about serving others in love. He then addressed something very relevant to our times, the challenge of unity in a world full of division. Today, many people believe that every belief is equally valid, and that truth is whatever someone wants it to be. Pope Leo didn't speak with condemnation. He didn't attack others. But he did draw a gentle line. He reminded the faithful that the church is not a marketplace of ideas, but a family, united under one shepherd and one truth. He acknowledged diversity, but he called for coherence, a unity built on shared truth and shared love. This is not about limiting freedom, he said. It's about giving freedom a foundation. Without that foundation, freedom can easily become confusion. But with it, our lives have meaning, direction, and purpose. He turned then to the gospel reading of the day, where Jesus calls Peter to be a fisher of men. This was a powerful image, not just a metaphor, but a mission. To fish, Pope Leo reminded us, is to lift others out of darkness and into light. It is not passive, it is active. It is not about comfort, it is about transformation. The Pope challenged the faithful to not just sit back and observe the brokenness of the world, but to enter it, to respond, to reach out, to invite. This is the work of the Church, not to maintain what is, but to move toward what can be. Not to stay within walls, but to go where the wounds are deepest and bring the healing love of God. He made it clear that this mission is not only for priests or bishops, it is for everyone. Every believer is called to cast the net, to share the light, to have Christ, to live a faith that is not hidden but shared. Faith is not a private escape, it is a public calling. And this calling means stepping out of comfort zones, speaking truth in love, and living in such a way that others can see Christ through us. The Pope then reflected on the image of Peter, not as a perfect man, but as a man touched by mercy. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, yet he was still chosen to lead the church. Pope Leo used this story to remind us all that the church is not built on perfect people, but on forgiven people. It is built not on pride, but on humility. The Pope said clearly that only someone who has received mercy can truly extend it to others. Leadership in the church is not about moral superiority. It is about being transformed by the love of God. He pointed to a very important exchange between Jesus and Peter. When Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" The Greek words used reveal something deeper. Jesus asked with the word agape, divine, total love. Peter responded with phileo, human love, friendship. The message was clear. Even when we cannot fully return God's love, He still calls us. He meets us where we are, He trusts us to grow, and He still sends us to serve. This is the beauty of divine mercy. It does not wait for perfection. It simply asks for a heart that is willing to love and to grow. Pope Leo spoke of how the depth of our love for God depends on how deeply we understand His love for us. If we believe His love is small, our own love will remain small. But if we begin to grasp how vast and unconditional His mercy is, our hearts cannot help but overflow with compassion and grace. This is what transforms a person. Not guilt but love, not fear but mercy. And this, the Pope said, is what forms a true shepherd. He spoke clearly and directly about the Church's role in the modern world. He reminded us that the mission is not about comfort or admiration. It is about service. The Church must be like leaven in bread, quiet, often unseen but transformative. Its job is not to shine in the spotlight but to make the world rise. In a time when many want to be noticed, the Pope called us to be faithful even if we are never seen. This is the posture of true evangelization. Not to argue, but to invite. Not to dominate, but to love. Not to shout, but to gently say, "It doesn't have to be this way. There is something better. There is someone better.